We're being recorded, everyone. So we will be talking about leadership skills, and we'll be introducing you to some concepts associated with leadership, as well as talking a little bit about parliamentary procedure. With that, my name is Michael Hudson. I am the Assistant Director of Human Resources, temporary, and my phone number and email address is there in case you want to contact me at any time if you have any questions about the presentation today. We do have a lot of material, but I would like to, of course, be available for questions when they come up. So please let Cyrus know, and he'll make sure that I answer the questions. If there are questions that were not answered, please stay on the phone, stay on the line rather, and after the class is over, we will have a formal ending at 11 o'clock to honor our 1 hour commitment for those who need to leave at 11. But if you have questions after that and you don't mind sticking around, be sure to stay on the line and we will make sure we answer that. So this is the 5th in a series of communications, business communications. And I have to click here, I think. Okay, we have one more session, and that's called I'm Holding the Microphone. We'll talk about public speaking, what makes good public speakers. We'll give you the tools you'll need to lead with, to be a public speaker, whether it's in front of the Board of Trustees rather, or running for office, or making a presentation in one of your meetings. If you're into sales, we'll talk about some persuasive techniques. So we hope you join us next week. The questions coming about, are we going to repeat this series? We have no immediate plans at this point to repeat the series. We'll have to see how things are going with our phasing us coming back to work. And so we'll be reviewing that as we go along. And so keep an eye on the material we send out. Keep in mind that Cyrus sends out information every couple of weeks, and it shows all the opportunities. Please take advantage of those opportunities for employees. It's important for the district, hopefully important to you. Hopefully you're getting things that will help you. It certainly helps the district when you all take these classes. So with that, we'll get started. We'd always like to go back to the communication model where we have a sender, someone sending the message itself, the person who's receiving it. And with all of these sessions, I'll be emphasizing it's important that you utilize, first of all, you try to minimize interference as you're sending a message, and you try to utilize the principle of feedback when you're receiving a message, meaning you're taking steps to get rid of anything that creates interference, whether it's noise in the background or whatever it is. So learning some techniques in communication will help provide, first of all, remove some of that interference and give you that method of feedback that's so important in communication. So first of all, we want to identify what a leader is. And I want to point out we're not talking exactly about a supervisor. Supervisor has to be a leader, first of all. But there are some people that are in leadership positions that are not necessarily supervisors. So for example, a lead worker function is a lead capacity for a group of employees working on a project or a specific assignment basis. So that would be the person who assigns work or maybe kind of monitors the project. And the lead worker does not have full formal supervisory authority for staff assigned to projects. However, in order to complete projects or assignments, they must be able to schedule and control the daily working arrangement for a specified group of employees. And if you're wondering about it, are you expected to do any kind of leadership roles in your job, the best place to turn to is your job description. It will usually talk about whether you're a lead worker or not. I would say all of its times get assigned to committees where we may have a lead position or other staff functions that are going on where you're just the person who's kind of in charge. And I want to also stress that leadership skills will help you whether you're recognized as a formal leader in any situation. So if you're in a meeting and everybody's kind of dancing around and they don't know what direction to move in. There are steps you could take, even though you're not the person leading the meeting to help that situation out. So a supervisor, on the other hand, is someone who customarily and regularly directs the work of 2 or more people working in a department or unit, and they have the authority to hire or fire employees. They're also involved in evaluations and that type of thing. So as a leader, you're not getting involved as a supervisor. You're not the one who has to evaluate and take corrective action when the person's not meeting your full expectations. As a leader, you're just someone who has a leadership role, okay? As we go along, be sure to ask questions. So first of all, if you're ever wonder, gee, am I a supervisor? Most CSEA employees are not supervisors. So if you are a CSA employee, you may be doing some lead work as part of your job, but you would not be in a supervisory role. So I like us to think about some of the leadership roles we have at Santa Monica College. Does anybody have any examples they could share? Who's taking a leadership role? Any examples? Looks like Denise raised her hand. Denise, can we call on her?
Go ahead, Denise.
I mean, I'm in a leadership role, but I took on extra leadership roles, I guess. So that can happen sometimes where, you know, you're in a position, but you're asked to acquire other duties and perform extra leadership duties for more people than you originally intended.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are you on any committees or what, or is it the certain thing that job, like looking?
I'm on a lot of committees.
But you're saying specifically at your work site where maybe you're asked to take kind of leadership over something, but you're not formally the supervisor over that particular activity, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody? Thank you, Denise. Are there any other examples from others? Anybody serving on? Okay, 2 people raise their hand. Cyrus, who should go first?
Let's go. So Leroy.
Each one of us in the media services has had to take a lead role when doing the Welcome Back Day or the VIP Day in August or the Staff Development Day in March. So we have to like figure out what classrooms and help assign which classrooms are being assigned to which media services person.
Okay.
And we're not actual supervisors, but we have to take a lead role.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you, Leroy.
Good example, thank you. Was there another hand raised? If there was, I think there's one more hand raised. Please open your mic. Was it Jeff? Jeff, just go ahead and unmute yourself if you want to say anything.
It wasn't me.
I wasn't. Okay, I just saw your thumbs up. Okay, I think that's
Thanks, Jeff.
okay. All right, any other examples before we move on? If not, we'll move on. So part of being a good leader is working in collaboration, right? So that's when you're working on a team, and that's a group of people who are working to achieve a common goal. So you may be assigned to a team, and there's nobody who's designated as the head of the team. You may be the chair of that team. It may be that you're all thrown in the same role without a clear leader, and exhibiting some leadership skills may help out the team, whether you want to claim it as being the leader of the team or not. But collaboration is something a lot of us are involved with when we're working with other team members, a common goal. We're all working on the same project. So let's look at some of the signs where there is collaboration. So one sign is where there's shared objectives. So before you get into a team or any collaboration, you want to make sure everyone is aware of what the objectives are of that collaboration. you want to have a sense of commitment. So everyone needs to be committed to that group. And as a leader, you can't necessarily, we're not supervisors in this role, so we can't make other people show that commitment. But if we have to show the commitment ourselves, and certainly show the enthusiasm to encourage others to have that same level of commitment. A sense of belonging, yet you all have to feel like you're part of that team. And as members of the team, we can take steps to make sure others feel welcome. Open communication, you have to be willing to speak openly to each other. If you have an opinion, speak your mind in a kind way, not in an argumentative way, but letting people know what your thoughts are. Mutual respect and trust are very important in collaboration. Complementary, you're looking for skills that you can share with others and looking for other people's skills. And that's, by the way, part of what I do in a session like this. I call myself a facilitator because you are the ones out there with the experiences. So people are learning, I'm learning from you all, you're learning from me, and you're learning from each other. So that we have to complement each other. Diverse skills and knowledge. We don't all come to SMC with the same skill set, and I may be strong in some areas, and then other areas I need that assistance, and it's good to share those skills, make sure other in that collaboration or committee know your skills and draw upon those skills. Intellectual agility, you have to be willing to move from one thing to another and not sacrifice or not compromise on your abilities. Okay. There's some barriers that keep us from that collaboration when we're working as a group. And one of them is stranger danger. So, has anybody been in a situation where, I'll tell you when it happens for me, when people are using a lot of acronyms. So I'm in a group and they're using acronyms and I don't understand acronyms, then I'm a little reluctant to speak up. So what I do is I slow them down. I say, wait a minute, I want to be a part of this, but please explain to me what a LGR is, or whatever it is. And then the others will say, wow, Michael doesn't understand. Let's slow it down and explain it to him. Has anybody else been in a situation where they're feeling reluctant to speak up, that they want to share? Okay. If not, whenever you have those ideas, go ahead and press the raise your hand button and we can call upon you. But stranger danger is very common. There's the quiet person in the committee, and they may have some very good information, but they're just a little bit reluctant. They're out of their zone. And I've felt that way. I'm sure everyone's been in a situation where they're not quite comfortable. When you sense that on another person in that group, you want to welcome that person and slow it down a little bit and say, we haven't heard from Cyrus in a while. Cyrus, I want to make sure we get your input as well. Needle in the haystack. So this is where people believe that others may have already solved your problem, but how do you find them? So it's like, oh, the other people have done this. Oh yeah, everybody knows how to take care of this situation, but they're not telling you. So they need to articulate. If there's something that everybody's done, everybody knows, please tell us what it is that you know that we don't know. So that's the needle in the haystack. And so that's not helpful to collaboration. Hoarding. This is where people don't want to share knowledge because they see hoarding as a source of power. Unfortunately, this is very true. So there's someone who says, I'm the only one who knows this code, or I'm the only one who knows how to do this procedure. And I'm afraid to share it because the second I share it, they'll fire me and they'll keep someone else. So this is not helpful to collaboration. If you know the information and you're not willing to share it, that team is not going to work. So if something not invented here, the avoidance of previously performed research or knowledge that was not originally developed or used here, So that could be a situation where, hey, we never tried that. No, we're good with what we have. So we have, let's say there's, I don't know how many community college districts there are around the country. Why wouldn't we want to hear from how others have solved their situations? Because if all the colleges in the state, or even all the colleges in the nation, can collaborate with each other, then you don't have to start from scratch every time you're in a collaboration. So when someone says, hey, we don't need to know what's from the outside. Yes, you do. You need to find out what's out there. If someone's done the work for you, you want to benefit from that work. So these are barriers we want to avoid. Certainly we have total control of how we act in a situation. If we're feeling that reluctance to speak up, sometimes it's good to just say, I'm kind of new to this, but I do have some ideas. We want to avoid these types of behaviors because it works against any collaboration. So let's talk about leadership styles. That's our next area. So one style is an autocratic leader. Anybody want to have any idea what that is? Anybody want to speak up on what they think an autocrat would be like? What are some of the attributes of an autocrat? Okay.
Isolated.
Isolated is one. Okay, that's good. What else? Okay. So isolated is a very good start because an autocrat is someone who makes decisions without consulting with others. The decision is made without any form of consultation. So you can see that if someone is strictly making decisions on their own, that means they're losing the benefit of other people's information and they don't know the impact of their situation. And the autocratic style works where there's no need for input on the decision, where the decision would not change as a result of input, and where the motivation of people to carry out the subsequent actions would not be affected, whether they were or were not involved in the decision making. I think there may be exceptions, but in most cases here at the college, we would not be looking for someone to take this type of role. I would say this would be more appropriate, let's say, by police forces and in the military, where they don't have time to sit down and have a meeting and discuss things, where something has to be done. One person needs to make the decision and actions have to take place quickly. Here at most of the college level, as supervisors, as leaders, we want to take the time to get input from our other people in our committee or in our group and make sure we're using the knowledge of everyone. So the autocratic style is where you have no room for input, where the people won't be affected. They just have to carry out your decisions. It's usually not the best style to use. So what about democratic? Democratic style, the leader involves the people in the decision making, and all the process for the final decision may vary from the leader to having the final say-so to them facilitating the consequences in the group. So in other words, the leader may still make the final decision, but somewhere in the process, that leader is going to get the input from everyone. Or it may be that the whole group decides. Or it may be the group takes a vote and then they still don't agree, and a leader says, as a leader, I need to make a final decision. But at some point, that input from everyone is there. So it's usually appreciated by the people, especially if they have been if they're used to autocratic decisions in which they disagreed. It can be problematic when there is a wide range of opinions and there is no clear way of reaching an equitable final decision. So this is alluding to the fact that there has to be a balancing act here. Because if you're the leader of a group, you can't spend 2 weeks deciding on something without taking action. So you, as a leader, the leader needs to be able to listen to all the sides, take as much input as appropriate, and then move on. So that might be taking a vote, or it may be that leader saying, okay, here's what we're going to do based on what I've heard from everyone. But at least in this style, you are hearing from all the parties involved. And the resolution depends on the type of project. Any questions on the democratic style leadership? And then, if my French is proper, this is called laissez-faire, or I like to call it laissez-faire, because a laissez-faire leadership style is to minimize the leaders' involvement in decision-making, and hence allowing people to make their own decisions, although they may still be responsible for the outcome. So I think a good leader in general should be someone who involves people, but doesn't just give away the whole farm. In other words, they're still making sure that they're on track. A laissez-faire style would sometimes fail to do that, because at what point are you just another team member and not the leader? So we'll go on here. Laissez-faire works best when people are capable and motivated and making their own decisions, and where there is no requirement for central coordination, for example, in sharing resources across a wide range of different people. So one of the qualities of a good leader is bringing out the leadership skills of others. And in that situation where you can bring out the leadership skills of others by maybe sitting back and letting others taking some of those roles, that's where laissez-faire works. But in its very worst, it means, oh, this is democratic, you all make a decision and we'll do what you all say. That's not keeping them steered in the right direction. So of the three styles, I would say that in most situations, the democratic style is what works. Autocratic is where you have to make a decision and take action right away. Laissez-faire is where you're really saying, yeah, we're not gonna, there's gonna be no leader here. Everyone will just make their decisions. Okay, any questions? Styles of leadership. Let's talk about the traits of a good leader, things we wanna look at. And let's say the word, let's get something here. Oh, first of all, honest. Had to be sincere, integrity, and candor in all your actions. Deceptive behavior will not inspire trust. I like to use the word transparent. If you're able to share something, please give people information. They feel like they're being betrayed. If you give a little information here, a little information there, honestly, there are times when information is confidential and we can't share it. And obviously we have to honor that. But there are times when we can give people the full picture, and that allows us to be more sincere and honest, and people will respect that more than they would someone who's not sharing information. Competent. You should be basing your actions on reason and moral principles. Do not make decisions based on childhood emotional desires or feelings. I think this is a hard thing for most people because we all have feelings. Things affect us in different ways, but ideally you want to put your feelings aside as a leader. And it may take you being honest with others and saying, I want to be a good leader, but what you said hurt my feelings, or I'm really impacted by the work at hand, just like all of you are impacted, but we're going to try to make our decision based on the facts. So our emotions can sometimes get in our way. And it's very hard to say. I'm not a psychologist. I know that there are times when I'm thinking, gee, I'm really feeling emotional. I feel strong about something. And maybe the best situation is to be honest about that, especially if you're in a group, but then to commit to not letting those emotions get in your way. Forward thinking. You have to think about the future, right? You set goals and have a vision of the future. The vision must be owned throughout the organization. I talk about ownership a lot in communication classes. If I make a mistake, I want to own that mistake. If our group does something, we want to take ownership of that, but we also want to take ownership of what our goals are. We want to be committed to it. And think about not just where we are, but where we'll be, and set some milestones. Where do I want to be a week from now? Where do I want to be a month from now? This is forward thinking. Effective leaders envision what they want and how to get there, and be honest about that. I mean, if someone just says, I want you to do something, and you're looking at it and say, there's no way we can get there. You have to be honest about your limitations. But you want to be ambitious. They habitually pick priorities and stemming from their basic values. So that's the idea of being forward-looking. Very important as a leader. Inspiring. Display confidence in all that you do. You show endurance in your mental, physical, and spiritual stamina, and you will inspire others to reach for new heights when you do that. And take charge when necessary. There are times when a leader just has to say, here's what we need to do so we can move forward. Other traits, intelligent. This is not how, an IQ test. I think intelligent is not exactly the right word, but what we really mean is you're out looking for information. You're seeking new assignments. You're learning about where you're going. I know my daughter was in a soccer team, and I never ever played soccer before, but I was the only parent who stepped forward. So they said, oh, good, you're the coach. So I didn't know anything about soccer, never played it. I ran to the library, I got a whole bunch of books on coaching soccer, and I coached a team. So I wasn't intelligent by any means, but I did stay one step ahead by reading all these books. And if the parents challenged me, I said, do you know about the such and such drill? Oh yeah, it's very effective, because that's what it said in the book. So you don't have to be born with all the answers, but you should be someone who's seeking to find answers. And that's Googling, that's going to the library, it's getting that information. Fair-minded. If people think they're being treated differently than others, they're going to react. They will not help you. They will not be part of the solution. So be fair-minded to others. Prejudice is the enemy of justice. Display empathy by being sensitive to feelings, values, interests, and well-being of others. Broad-minded, seek out diversity. If you know someone has a totally different view than you, you want to get that input as well. Also, courageous. Have the perseverance to accomplish a goal regardless of the seemingly insurmountable obstacles. It's so easy to say we can't do that. It's so easy to do that, but it does take courage to say, we're gonna try to meet this goal. Display a confident calmness when under stress. Hard to do, but this is what we're striving for. Straightforward, sound judgment, making sound decisions, good decisions at the right time. How do you practice this? Getting as much information about decisions, learning what people have in mind, going through the options and trying to rule out ones that are not good options or won't work. Being imaginative, think about things that never happen. I think this was said about Robert F. Kennedy, that some people see things that never were, and he saw. Some see things the way they are. Some people dream of things that never occurred. So the idea of dreaming of something that's never happened before and try to make it happen. That's forward thinking, that's being imaginative. It's recognizing that we can go the new paths. So that's being imaginative. So there are times we may actually be the leader of the meeting. So we have some tips for the leaders of a meeting or a group, but these are things that other members can also learn that will help you assist the leader. You don't have to have the name leader on your badge to show your leadership skills. But let's talk about leading a meeting. Have to be clear on the purpose and aims. A lot of times I'll go to meetings, they'll have the agenda all worked out and it's in writing, and they'll even start the meeting by saying, is there anything else we know we need to add on the agenda? So that way, when you start out, you know where you are now and you know where you want to be by the end of the meeting. So you create that agenda, you schedule the meeting. Some of these are obvious, so we'll skip through them very quickly. Agenda needs to be posted. The idea is that people know what's there, so they're more likely to stay on target. Ensure that supporting information is circulated to be useful. Ensure that the room arrangements are made, refreshments. If it's a Zoom meeting, make sure there's a lot to be done there, so make sure that everything's in place. And arrange for recorder and supplies and everything else you use in a meeting. Okay. And then during a meeting, start on time. I think it's very important to start on time, because if you start late once, people who were going to show up on time will start arriving late. So I try to have what I call a kind of a soft ending, a soft beginning rather, where it's I'm not into the main part of my meeting, but I'm doing things that may be showing that we're starting on time. It may be my, introducing myself. I like to tell a little joke sometimes, and then where my main meeting starts 5 minutes later. So if someone's a couple minutes late, they'll miss my introduction, or maybe we'll go around the room and introduce everyone, but they'll get the main part of the meeting. So start the meeting on time. And that will encourage for subsequent meetings for people to show up on time as well. Ensure quorum. So some organizations, you have to have so many members there to take a vote. You can actually have a meeting in most cases, but you can't take a formal vote. So you could actually start a meeting, and once it gets to something where you have to take a vote, you have to count people and make sure you have that required number. And it depends on the organization. Review the agenda beforehand and keep a discussion focused on agenda items. So it's very important that people know what's on the agenda, make sure we keep them focused. Encourage full participation, make note of who's not participating, bring them into the conversation. They may have stranger danger, as you mentioned earlier, and help the group to come to decisions. So if there's some outliers out there, you're going to listen to them, but you're going to keep in mind that, not everybody's relating to that. And then you're going to listen to the people that seem to have the best answer, other people relating to, and kind of guide in that direction without cutting people off. And that's hard to do all of that, but that's the goal, is that you hear everyone, you see what's most likely to work, and try to steer in that direction. Summarize decisions so people are aware of where they are in the meeting. Agree on an action plan, appoint person, what needs to be done by whom and when. And you should have an agenda for the next meeting when you can. And anything you do in life, it's good to have evaluation. After every training I'm doing 2 trainings during our stay-at-home session. And Cyrus is good enough to conduct that evaluation because it's good to know what works and doesn't work. And so next time, I'm a better facilitator. And if you're a leader, it's good to evaluate, it's good to get feedback. And you don't want just people patting you on the shoulder saying, good job. You want them to tell you what you did right, what could be improved. So very important to get that evaluation. After the meeting, ensure minutes are distributed, including the guests. I work on, I'm involved on some leadership roles in nonprofit organizations where sometimes we'll vote on something, but they forget to tell the staff what we voted on, so it never gets done. So it's important that you follow through. So keep them together. Sometimes that's required by the state, but people need to be able to review later on and know what decisions you made. And make sure that it's taking place. If it's on the agenda, it passes. Whoever is in charge of carrying it out, you need to check, as a leader, you need to check on them later. Okay. And in a meeting, there can be a leader, and that's the person who convenes the meeting and takes responsibility for communication. Also, this person is leading the discussion on all items and may ask others, including a facilitator, to lead all or parts of the discussion. This enables a leader to be in full participation the discussions. So I've been in a lot of meetings where the leader is the one who's actually picking on people that speak. And then he or she says, you know, I'd like to participate in this discussion. Could the facilitator or whoever just be the leader of that discussion? And that allows the leader of the meeting to participate without being in charge, because that way that other person is making decision who speaks. But generally, a facilitator keeps the discussion and decision-making moving along. This person basically helps the leader. Facilitator takes responsibility for the process, but should not be involved in the content of the meeting. A facilitator is especially useful if the leaders hold strong opinions on an agenda item. So this is someone who helps that leader and says, you know, you need to hear from this person, and this person before you move on. Any questions as we go along? Okay, hearing none, we keep moving. Also, recorder takes notes on paper, laptop, or flip charts. Meeting notes should be distributed as soon as possible after the meeting. The longer you lag, the less confidence the members have that their investment will result in action. For groups that meet regularly, the recorder is responsible for keeping previous meeting notes and agendas in one place where they can be referenced later, such as through a shared notebook drive or notebook. So that recorder takes note of everything that took place and makes that available. Some organizations will call that the secretary of the meeting. The key thing is that the information is kept, is distributed, and then it's maintained. Someone needs to keep track of the time. So, you know, you may have it on your agenda that item 1, you'll spend 5 minutes. Item 2, you'll spend 5 minutes. So it's good to have a separate person keep track of that time for you. Stopwatch or a small clock is invaluable, or an iPhone. Lots of ways to keep track. Okay. Before a meeting begins, of course, some of this is obvious, but we should go over it. But turn off your cell phones. Treat other members with respect, even in the face of disagreement. Send a substitute if you can't attend, or let the leader know. If you're not the leader, you're going to let the leader know that you can't make it. Obviously, the leader has to make arrangements if he or she can't make it. Bring a handout when you're asking for a proposal or action, just so people know what you're talking about. And arrive on time, start on time, very important. And some of the ground rules of meeting, one speaker speaks at a time. That's why it's important for someone in the room, hopefully the leader, if not someone else designated, to make sure that you don't have more than one person trying to speak at a time. Try to listen to each other, try to understand the other person's point of view before responding. A lot of time we're trying to arm ourselves. As that person's speaking, we're building up the ammunition to fire back. And that's not good leadership. It's not good listening. It's important to listen to that person. Have you ever had a situation where you're asking someone a question and they answer before you finish asking the question, right? I want to know, did I make it to last week's meeting? Yes, of course I did. And then I would say, you know, I'm going to repeat the question if you don't mind. I need you to listen for me to finish the question and then respond. So important to hear what someone is asking before you respond, and making sure you're taking note of what others are saying. Okay. Okay. So there's certain things that need to be kept in confidence. And I think as a leader, we need to know what things need to be kept in confidence, and everyone needs to respect the confidence. So there should be, I think the default here is that they're suggesting here is that everything should be kept in confidence unless there's an agreement regarding who needs to know further information. And I think this is a good pathway we should follow. Assume it's kept in confidence. If you want to share something outside of the meeting, it's good to ask before you do so. And once it's shared, it's impossible to get back. And then we agree to talk directly with the person with whom there are concerns and not seek to involve others in gossip or alliance building. So if you have a concern with someone, talk to that person. Don't go out and gossip with others. Don't try to build up a group of people to battle that person the next time you meet. So during a meeting, we agree to try our hardest and trust that others are doing the same with the group. We support the expression of dissent, especially in a harassment-free workplace. We agree to attack issues, not the people. So if you disagree with someone issue, and they say the building is blue and you say the building is brown, and then it's time for you to speak and you say, you're stupid to think the building is brown. You're not attacking the issue. You're attacking that person, calling them stupid, calling them names. You would say, well, I bought it from this paint store and the can says blue, so I'm assuming it's blue, okay? That's attacking the issue, and that's fair. We can attack the issues in the meeting. We can be on opposite sides, but once we start making personal comments about the person with whom we disagree, that's a personal attack, and it does not help the meeting at all. That should not be allowed in a meeting at all. Yeah, and you can run into some problems. Okay. There are phrases that we use during meetings or when we try to be leaders that we want to avoid. And one of them is, you're too young. You know, so you're giving your opinion, and let's say you're 50 years old, and here's this new person just got hired, and they say, oh, you know, you're too young. When you get old as me, then you'll have a better understanding of the world. Well, that young person may turn around and say, well, the thing is, when you're young like me and energetic like me and have new ideas, that's what's best, right? Then you get into a disagreement based on age. So this, talking about someone's age or whatever, this, once again, it's a personal attack. And so you want to avoid talking about someone's age no matter what. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. I've heard that. People say, you know, why are we talking about this? It works all right, it's fine. Why are we trying to fix it? Well, here's the reason we're trying to fix it. It's because we're trying to do things better. We're always challenged because, you know, we're doing something, everybody's happy with how we're doing it, but there's ways we can do it even faster. We can do it even better. And why aren't you always striving for excellence, even if something's working? Another phrase we want to avoid, we've always done it this way. Back in 1947, we did it that way. And, you know, we always have to be ready for change because there's opportunities there. We always look for those opportunities. Some of those opportunities are good or some of them are not. But we have to be always open for those opportunities and not assume that things are perfect the way they are. I'll get back to you. How about that? How many people have heard, I'll get back to you, and the person never gets back to them? There may be a situation where you have to use this phrase, but don't use it as a way to be dismissive. Oh, he'll forget about it and I'll never get back to him. This is very rude, right? That will never work. Oh no, that one, oh no, we're not gonna try that. Oh no, are you crazy? That will never work. Something we want to avoid. I think it's obvious, but I think a lot of us do this. No, right? This is the most dismissive word you can use. Have to listen to the person, discuss it, and then make a decision. But if you outright won't listen to them, you'll never get anywhere. Great idea, but it's not for us. You know, maybe LA Community College District, but not for Santa Monica. No. You know, it's for other districts. You know, there's smaller districts or larger districts or districts in other countries or other states, but it's not for us. Why? Why is it not for us? Why don't you listen to the person and find out before you use that killer phrase? Do you realize the paperwork it will create? And actually that's a consideration. You want to look at the paperwork, how much it will cost. You want to look at all elements of a decision, because what you don't want to do is to just dismiss a recommendation or an idea without hearing all sides of the argument. But there are people that like to do that. Oh, it costs, that's too much paperwork. That's too much. Listen to the full idea and compare it before you make a comment like this. It isn't your responsibility. Why are you getting involved in this? So, gee, I love it when people come up with bright ideas that aren't related to maybe their official role. And I want to listen. I want to listen. It's not your responsibility. That's a terrible thing. That's telling that person, you stay in this place and don't ever present any ideas that go outside of this little box that I'm putting you in. Okay, anybody have a comment?
Yeah, let's actually pause right here for a little bit to give some people a chance to ask questions. These are very good phrases that sometimes do come up within meetings. So, does anybody have any thoughts or comments that they would like to share around this topic?
Okay.
I have one comment.
Go for it.
I think sometimes too, maybe these phrases or ideas aren't explicitly said, but sometimes it's implicit, like implied that, you know, certain things like, oh, we're not going to try that for XYZ reason, it's not going to work, or we've never done it that way. It might not be like said outright, but it's something that is sort of like an undercurrent in a conversation, which, you know, stops progress at times and new thought.
I totally agree with that, Denise. That's something that comes up. We have it in our mind of what we want to do, and we don't want to be ready for a totally different view. And it gets us out of our comfort zones. I mean, I have an idea of what's going to work, and it's within my comfort zone, and I'm ready for it. And someone comes up with something where I'm thinking, I've never done it. How could that work? We've never done it before. So we have to be open. And you're right, Denise, there are times when people don't say this, but you could tell just by their actions. You know, they're folding their arms, they're looking away, they're not paying attention to you. And that's not collaboration. That's not something, that's not building a procedure that's going to hear all the views. It's important that we're open to views, even if they're really out of what we think would work. And we're going to talk about brainstorming pretty soon, a couple of pages over, and we'll talk about why it's important to hear all views. So let's see, other killer phrases. We tried that before, it didn't work then, won't work this time. So those are killer phrases. Actually, brainstorming is our next topic. So we want to hear all the views. The idea with brainstorming is you thinking out of the box. There are times when you're just going to go out and you're going to listen, just as crazy as it may seem to you or crazy to others, write all the ideas down and then look at them one by one. And when I first learned about brainstorming, I heard about this company that packaged things to send out. So it was a manufacturing company. They were sending some things out to the customers, you know, and they had to put it in a box, and they had to put newspaper in the boxes, right? So the people wouldn't, you know, so whatever they were sending out didn't get damaged. So what was happening was they were finding that the workers weren't very productive. And you know why? Because they were reading the newspaper, right? And so this company put out, and this is a real story, they had a meeting and they said, okay, let's talk about some ideas. So someone said, you know what we need to do? We need to put blinders over their eyes. We need to put blinders over their eyes so they can't see. And one person said, oh, that's a stupid idea. Why did you even say that? And then the leader said, no, let's put that on the board and we'll talk about it. So then they went through their ideas and then they said, now, what about this blinder? What can we do? And the interesting thing was next to this company, there was a newspaper, or maybe not next to it, but somewhere nearby, there was a newspaper that published in a different language and used the different characters than we use in English. And they started getting the newspapers, you know, the leftover newspapers, the ones that didn't sell, from that source, so that people wouldn't read the newspaper while they were packaging the goods. So if they had never thought out of the box, they never would have had that advantage. So with brainstorming, once again, we're listening to all the ideas, throwing them out on the board, and then we look at them one by one. So, but when we do that brainstorming, we want to look at the objective. What are we trying to resolve? Brainstorm ideas and suggestions, having agreed upon a time limit. So it shouldn't just go all day, but we'll say that we'll spend the next 15 minutes, just anything that comes to mind, and we throw it on the board. Categorize, condense, combine, and refine. So we're taking those ideas, putting them together, see what comes up the most. Assess, analyze the efforts or results. Prioritize options, rank them as appropriate. Agree on an action and a time scale, and control and monitor follow-up. So this is a great technique to resolve problems, because you're going to hear all these ideas, and it's a big jumble of ideas that are on a board, or however we record those ideas. Then what we do, we're categorizing them, we're analyzing the effects or results of each one, and then we look at what's good and what isn't, and we never put anybody down for coming up with what might be thought to some people to be a stupid idea. What we do is we assess, we analyze, and then we prioritize. And the ones that truly are not going to be helpful are the ones that don't get it to the top of this list. But you never put that person down for coming up with a stupid idea, because sometimes when we think quickly, we wind up thinking of something that works. So next, any questions on brainstorming? Okay, we want to talk about parliamentary procedure, and it's the body of rules, ethics, and customs governing meetings and other operations of clubs, organizations, and governmental bodies. Most people follow what's called Robert's Rules of Order for parliamentary procedure. I recommend everyone go out and buy that book, or look on web pages that have information about Robert's Rules of Order. It's hard to remember all of them, but I like to go through some of them. I'm going to ask if Cyrus will mail out, when he sends out the evaluations, links to this website. I took one. This is not even sure, it's another college. They ended an EDU, so I know it's another educational institution. I'm sure they won't mind if we borrow what they put on the internet, but here's how they summarized Robert's Rules of Order. It's just an orderly way of conducting a meeting, and if everyone learns those rules, no one's, feelings shouldn't be hurt by using it. So first of all, when you're having a meeting and someone wants something to happen, they call that a motion. So first of all, the person raises their hand. If there's only a few people in a group, you may not need to be this formal, but really, if you have 50 people in the room, you don't want people shouting out ideas. You want them to raise their hand, and then the chair or the leader recognize that person's by name, and they say, I move to, and then they say what they want done. I move that we spend $3,000 on a holiday party in December, and then sits down. And then someone else has to agree with that. I second the motion, and then the chair will say it's moved and seconded, and then there's a discussion, or if there's no discussion, if it sounds like something everyone wants to do, they'll say, are you ready for the question, meaning for the vote? People can debate the motion. People can ask to obtain the floor by raising their hand, or what, if it's a smaller group, you don't have to be that formal. And any discussion has to be regarding the motion. You can't talk about something that's not related. And then you can close the vote. In very formal procedures, it has to be 2/3 vote. It could be less depending on how you want to run the meeting. But if everyone has a copy of Robert's Rules of Order, or if you let other people in the group know, then that helps. So when the chair puts a motion to vote, they ask, are you ready for the question? They repeat the question, and then people either say yes or no, or I for yes and nay for no. And then people that are abstaining can also, you take the note of how many people are not voting, and you count the ayes or the yes votes, and then it carries. If not, then it fails. And I'm not going to go through everything because some of this will be in a handout. It's a lot to remember. So, and in the very formal procedure, Madam Chairman, Madam Chair, or Mr. Chair, Ms. Chair, or just using names if it's less formal, and I move that. And you can amend a motion. An amend a motion is where someone says, I move that we spend $2,000, and someone says, I want to make sure we have it at the Broad. So you amend it to add that the Christmas holiday party will be at Broad. I don't think they have holiday parties at Broad. So if anyone works at the Broad, don't start calling Broad and say Mike Hudson says you can have your party there. But yeah, so that person can amend that motion, and then you basically vote on amendment, and then you vote on the whole motion. And so you can refer to committees, you can postpone voting on something. If you're not ready to vote on something, you can postpone it till a later time. When you move to the previous question, it means you're ready to vote. And you can also limit debate. You could say, we're talking too long. I want to move. I move that we limit the discussion to 2 minutes a speaker, or whatever, however you want to limit it. Postponing indefinitely means that if no one else brings it back to the floor, the motion basically dies. And then, of course, you can withdraw a motion. There are times when you can suspend the rules. And then there's something called a point of personal privilege. If someone, their cell phone, they need to make a personal phone call, they can either just walk out the room, but if it's important that they be there for the vote, they can ask, point of personal privilege, and state that privilege. They can withdraw a motion. I think I had that. And then there's something called a point of order, where your leader is not following the rules. They can raise their hand and just say point of order, and that person has to listen to it. And point of information is if you want to make sure that something has happened. If you're saying, gee, was that voted upon? Point of information, I just want to know that we vote on this particular thing. So we'll give you a copy of the Summary of Robert's Rules of Order. It's a very good book to have that has all the information about conducting meetings. And now, with that, I'm going to open it to questions. Are there any questions about what we've talked about today? Is everyone ready to take on a leadership role? Okay, anybody ready to run for office? Okay, well, next week you'll talk about running for office. We'll talk about holding the microphone. We'll talk about what makes a good speaker. And you can use the leadership, which we've learned about leadership today, and then become a public speaker, and you'll be ready to run for office. So we hope to see everybody next week, or a week from today, at 10 o'clock. That will be the last session in our business communication series. Please give us feedback as to what you want to see repeated, or new ideas you have, and we'll look at presenting that to you. And then Cyrus will be giving out, making sure you all get the evaluation and a link to the Robert's Rule for Order, the summary link that we talked about today. And once again, if there are any questions, please remain, and we'll answer those questions. It's been a pleasure to be here today. Thank you all for attending. And are there any questions? Okay. Once again, thank you all for attending. We'll see you next week.
Great. Thank you, everybody. We'll give everybody a chance to exit the room, but Michael and I will stay on for just a couple more moments if anybody has any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all for attending.